Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Thomas Hare. I'm the Chief Content Officer of the Performance Driven Marketing Institute, a not-for-profit trade association that serves the professionals in the performance-driven and direct-to-consumer marketing industry. On behalf of our CEO, John Yarrington, and the rest of the PDMI team, it's my pleasure to thank you and welcome you here to PDMI East at the Eden Rock, Miami Beach. We'd like to thank the hotel and all of its staff for its assistance in bringing you the events of this week. I'd also like to thank our team for working so hard to make this event happen. I know at the end of the show in San Diego in October we were feeling good, and we were feeling good about this event all the way through about Thanksgiving, and then we spent 2 months feeling really bad about it. We spent most of December and January wondering if we're going to be here, but thanks to our sponsors, our 40 sponsoring companies, our 140 member companies, we actually had the biggest month of registration for any event in the history of the PDMI in February, which allowed us to put the show on. So thank you all. Before we get started, I would like to thank our sponsor of the education sessions, Paymerang. I have Mike Johnson, Vice President of Business Development here, say a couple words and introduce a video.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming today. Thanks to PDMI for letting us sponsor the event. It's nice to have everybody back in person, although I think everyone's having so much fun that they went out quite late celebrating the fact that Tom Brady is now playing football again. If you guys have not had a chance, make sure that you pick up your swag bag and you get your nice Paymerang socks. Hey, thanks for having us here. We're going to show a quick video and have a great session.
People ask me frequently, what is Paymerang and why do you use it? I tell them that Paymerang is a great way to pay your vendors, and you also get money back. And usually they're like, that's too good to be true. You've got to be kidding me. And you don't have to do all the upfront legwork. So I talk to them about it and I tell them how it works. You sign up with them, they do all the research on your vendors. You send them your vendor list, they do the research, they give you an average of what potentially your rebates may be based on that information. Then with that information, you go through it. And after you've implemented, you can see it takes away so much time from your accounts payable team. You see that you no longer have to do massive bank reconciliations. You see the amount of time that it saves your team. I don't know why anybody wouldn't use Paymerang. So when I'm talking to other CFOs or I'm talking to other controllers, I tell them why I use Paymerang and I explain the process of using it. And then most of the people want to find out about it.
Thank you again, Paymerang, for sponsoring. We're so thankful for that support, as well as all of our other sponsors. That said, I'm excited to have you with this for today's first session. Packages Lost at Sea. Here's your supply chain lifesaver. This was a workshop title by our E-Commerce Council. Greg Silvano of Buyist. Got that right?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Is our E-Commerce Council chair, and he's the moderator of this tremendous group. Thank you, and go for it.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. All right, gentlemen, we're going to go simple here. We're going to start simple. If you were to order a container today, when would you be able to start selling the products that are on it?
2024. Just kidding.
Is it extreme?
No, I mean, I would probably say it's... Traditionally, it's been 20 days on the water, 20-something days. It's now at minimum 45 days, and then there's time at the ports, which seem to be the biggest issue right now, both the China port and the domestic ports. I don't know if you guys must have seen the backlog of ships in California. I mean, that was real, and truck drivers and shortages is a real thing. So I would say, traditionally, again, you usually, when something's shipped from China, you were seeing it in 30 days. Now, even manufacturing it in China, which was usually a 30-day process, is probably a longer process, too.
So if you went back to 2018, 2019, before any of this, before COVID, if you were to order a container, you were thinking, okay, we'll be selling this container in how many days? Just pick a number.
We would peg like 65 days.
Steve?
I do the projections for our company. 90 days. I want to be safe.
Back then it would have been 90 days?
No, in the past 60 days.
Okay, so 60 days.
I would give time extra for delays.
Paul, you in the same boat there?
Yeah, we were always ordering. It was like 2 to 3 month, 3 to 4 month lead time on ordering from China, get the packaging in. It's all changed, obviously.
Yeah, so
where you're
so
going
today,
with this, I know.
Yeah, so I just want to get a scope, feel the scope of the change. We going from 30 days to 40 days, or we going from 30 days to 6 months? Like, what's the today?
I would also jump on one thing that you touched on with the container. What was the cost difference back then to what it is today? Let's hit that one too.
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, I mean, unless you're a Porsche and you're actually underwater right now,
which happened to a whole boat of Porsches.
Recently happened. But I mean, it really things are being turned over. Things like we're being effectively held hostage here, right? In manufacturing things, like containers are being turned over, costs are being.
What do you mean by turned over?
They just don't make it onto the ships.
Oh, okay.
So they're sitting at the port.
That's a new problem?
It's definitely a new problem. We never faced this issue before.
Is this something that now you know that it exists, you can do something about it, or are you just at the whims of what happens?
I mean, it's hard to do something about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Just one little thing that we did mitigate some of the risk that we had was because of the long lead time, we started, and also realized we're a U.S.-made product. We're not producing everything over there. We fly in some of the packaging. We're like, okay, great, we're going to do instead of a run of 25,000.
So the product isn't made there?
No,
packaging is.
packaging. So I'll fly in, say we want to do a run of 5 to 10,000 units. I'll fly them in. I'll spend that extra just to fly in that packaging so I can do my run. And then the 150 or whatever the balance, then we put that on the ship, because then we have that time. That's another way we're trying to make sure we mitigate things.
So a few years ago, how many, let's say packaging, pick a number, it doesn't have to be a real number, but you would order 10,000, 100,000, you would order?
In the old days, we'd say, okay, great, 3-4 month lead time, we'd schedule out and we'd say, let's order 25 to 50,000 every couple months, let's say.
Okay.
Now we got, and that was that 3 to 4 month lead time. Now it suddenly went 9 to 12 months on our packaging, and we're like, okay, great, now we have to budget and buy 200,000 or 250,000 units, because then we now inventory it.
So that changes everything.
It changed everything. It changed our cash flow situation.
You have to pay more money, but then you have to store these things. Is that?
Storage, cost. You just start to add it up, and then suddenly it's changing your whole sort of supply chain in a way of how you're trying to schedule out. We suddenly had to go and quickly raise money. We used lines of credit sometimes, just whatever we did just to get that packaging in, because that was without the products and our pipeline going, we were screwed.
So when you move, and obviously everybody's moving from a lean inventory to not lean inventory. Correct. When you make that shift and that pendulum swing, is there coming back from that? I mean, at some point you're sitting. Let's say things magically free up. Right? So they magically free up right now. They magically free up 6 months from now. You are now sitting on a ton of inventory, right, that you have to go. Would you be hesitant to go back to more lean? Or once you're set up for this, does it make more sense to stick with it? I mean, we got to lean inventory for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? It evolved that way, and obviously this one thing showed the weakness, right? The weak link of that chain.
I look at the world a little different. I found what happened is because we started to grow, our company took off during the pandemic. We were one of those, I guess, winners out of it, where women and men started taking care of their skin.
Actually, explain a little bit about what the products are.
I'm a co-founder of BeautyStat Cosmetics. We're a skincare company. We're founded by cosmetic chemists. We're all based we have our own lab in New Jersey. We do all our contract manufacturing out of New Jersey area. And yeah, we sort of exploded, on the retailers changed their tune. Suddenly, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Saks, Blue Mercury. I'm launching an Ulta Beauty right now as we speak. So suddenly we blew up. So you're right. Our change was, one, we got our economies of scale up by buying more packaging. One, it gave us that flexibility in the supply chain where if I had my 200,000 units of my bottles here, I could suddenly do smaller runs of 5, 10, 20,000, whatever we needed. And if we saw spikes on D2C, or I had some needs with the retail partners, I could usually get the ingredients quicker than I could get the packaging. But even the ingredients, sometimes I'd have the same issue. We had ingredients stuck on ships in December. I had to delay a launch by a month and a half because it was sitting out there and I couldn't get it. I actually were like, fly some more in. Let's just, whatever it needs, fly the 50 kilos of whatever we need. So you always had to be super flexible, to get those things going. So I don't think I would go back to the old way. I do like having that inventory now. Right. I do like the ability to.
So it opens up a different new type of efficiency or way of doing your business that you didn't.
If we were still small, I wouldn't do it. But now that we've grown, we can do more than
actually absorb the cost of having it.
A little bit.
Steve? So the original question was, if
lean inventory going back
going from
to that,
lean to not. Are you no longer lean inventory?
We try to keep it as lean as possible, but obviously projections on TV are highly variable. But we have a product, Nuzzle Pillow. Jack is our inventor, and that's a big product, and it had logistical issues with that. So
good timing, Jack.
So we'd rather be heavier than lighter, and so the customer's going to be satisfied by getting their pillow.
You the same?
I mean, look, I think you now need insurance, right? Like you need to you know what the possibilities are, so you need to manage your business knowing that is, again, it's in the realm. So, yeah, we're not as lean. I mean, during the pandemic, I ate a lot of tacos too, so I may not be as lean as I once was, but as a business, we are, we have to manage to the expectations of our customers at being a great supplier. But I think that does differentiate you as a business. If in bad times you could be a good supplier, and in good times you could be a good supplier, you'll be a great supplier to all of mass retail.
So that brings up something I wanted to come back to.
There's another issue. Before, when a container was like $3,000, $3,500,
yep.
Just for logistics, you might leave it half empty. Now you don't leave it half empty. You have to jam it full because you're at $16,000 for the container, another $5,000 to put it in a truck to ship it across the country.
Is that a theoretical problem, or you have to deal with that now?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, really?
You want it packed.
So what do you do? Do you try to find other products to cram it with, or do you
we have,
fill
but
it?
Then you'll just order more.
Yeah. What's your fallback on that? I mean, what do you
mean?
Are you ordering more product that might be sitting on a shelf and going nowhere? Or is it
possibly
exposing your risk?
But when you're having a rollout, it's a matter of being a little ahead of the curve.
It's riskier to not have the inventory than to have the inventory.
Definitely.
So Amit and Paul brought up the same thing different ways, and I think it's super important. When a container comes in today, okay, so let's say you get a full container, and you are in retail, you are on Amazon, you have a D2C campaign. Has this inventory problem, the logistics, the supply chain problem, has it changed how you have to distribute the product? So Amit, you had said you have to be a great supplier, right? Do you have to keep Walmart happy at all costs at the expense of a D2C campaign? Or let's say Amazon, you can't lose that #1 listing, right? So you have to keep that inventory. Like, how does that pecking order work?
I mean, first of all, you have to be smart with your inventory. Amazon actually doesn't have people that are calling you about it. Walmart does, right? So, the Walmart buyer is going to call you, and he's going to make threats.
Knows your name.
Amazon, the D2C, you could actually shut off at any time,
yep.
right?
Is that the lowest?
It's the lowest priority for us because, we're not getting angry phone calls. And Amazon, we have to maintain the buy box. We will feed them exactly what they need in order to do that.
But no more.
Like Walmart, they need what they need, and you have to supply them. And you have to be at a specific fill rate, or you will no longer be at Walmart.
Really? Have you been able to?
Yeah.
It's been steady enough. The inventory's been steady enough that
I just came from another conference where the average vendor had supplied what the retailer wanted at a 25% rate. So that's 25% of the orders that they were sending, that the customer was sending in to their vendors. Vendors were able to supply 1 out of 4 of those orders. We were better at 75%, but it's still not great. And we've done better than most.
I heard a story from one of our clients last year. It was in the summer, maybe very early summer, saying that Walmart had called and said, listen, we need every box that you have. Everything you've got, we'll rebox it, even if it wasn't ready for retail. We'll rebox it. We need things on the shelf for Q4. And it was an eye-opener. Right? When the 800-pound gorilla starts knocking on your door.
I mean, go shop an off-price retailer today here. They're empty.
They're empty. Right.
Bed Bath & Beyond, you go in there, it's...
Well, they're empty of customers.
Yeah, and shelves.
So, Paul, same question. When it comes to retail versus Amazon, are you on Amazon as well?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We run it.
And do you do your own D2C campaigns as well, or no?
Yes.
You do, okay. So has the supply chain problems kind of shifted what you consider important or not?
Well, I always say, I look at it as a bit of a pecking order, because when you're selling a consumer good, obviously if we sell D2C, it's full margin.
Right.
And skincare, for people who don't know the industry, is pretty good margin.
Yeah.
It also helps when you develop everything. So what I always try to do is make sure we're obviously feeding the D2C. Amazon, we basically do smaller shipments. I realized I learned something when we tried to put in big shipments. It got stuck for weeks. They wouldn't even check it in last year. I had some big problems with that. Where
it got stuck where?
I have no idea. I'd be sitting. For all I know, it was sitting outside a truck outside the
of
warehouse.
Amazon.
Yeah, they wouldn't even check it in. So that became a problem. So what I've learned with Amazon, I do small shipments more frequently. So I'll send you like a couple master cartons instead of sending 10 master cartons. So that seemed a little work. The retailers, obviously, we've been very fortunate because we don't have a huge range of products, so we're sort of narrow and deep, so to speak, with what we make. So what I found, it made it really easy for us is to basically, we just had the delay, really, like delay with getting ingredients. So instead of having, that launch in December, we'll launch in January and things like that. So we missed like maybe our windows sometimes, which was a pain because they're trying to set it up for, a launch and all these other things. So you have to be flexible in the day, you got to sort of roll with it when shit happens.
You said something interesting. I don't know what it was, but I know that's when Amit took out his pad and paper and started feverishly scribbling notes.
Call for retail distributors.
Yeah.
Steve, anything to add on that before we go to pricing?
Obviously there's the issues of bringing in containers, but trucking from the port to your facility is huge. Yep. We've consolidated our Amazon TV orders and also our catalog orders in one bunch because our fulfillment is in Los Angeles. And so there's a little hop, but our retail is distributed out of Indiana, and a truck from California to Indiana is like $5,000. So that's a whole different, that's brand new. It used to be much cheaper. So you have two issues now. One, your container, and two, getting it to your facility.
So it used to be that if the container was on the water, you knew it, and everything after that was known. It's on the water. So there's a whole new unknown. So here's the question. You place an order, and I don't know if that's the right term, right? There's a big unknown on when that's going to actually hit the water. Is it now equally as unknown as when it's going to be sitting on a shelf? Like you can't anticipate what's going to happen with trucking? Or is it loosening up a little bit and getting a little easier to predict? That's why I add 90 days
in my projections. I add an extra month, and if it gets here sooner, I'm happy. If it's not, okay.
That's
I
smart.
deal with it.
That's smart. Okay, let's go to pricing. It's come up in a couple of your questions. 3 years ago, how much was a container?
$2,600.
Today, how much is a container?
It depends on the week, honestly. I mean, with potentially Russia, it could go up, but we have seen 20,000 plus.
Yeah.
20,000 plus. What do you think it'll be? Is that going down anytime soon?
I don't think so.
Not at these gas prices.
And the trucking to your facility, so that's another $5,000 depending where your facility is.
So if you were and gas prices, I mean that impacts the trucking side of it.
And then there's rail issues. If you if you had the time, you could use trains, and that would be less expensive, but that's really messed up, you don't want to put anything on a train.
Is it less messed up? Is it just messed up because we don't know how to do it?
No, it's just
is it worth
logistical problems with the volume that's coming in.
Yeah, and
because the volume's too small to make sense.
Staffing issues, really, when it comes to the rail yards.
Who's staffing
the rail yards?
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's just containers like packing up there.
Really?
So there's not enough people to get the containers off the trains when they come. It used to be a fairly reliable method of transportation, also historically the oldest method of transportation we have. But the fact that there's glaring holes in it, the infrastructure we've put into place into all of our logistical systems is inadequate at a time like this. So, and I think we're seeing that.
Where do you think pricing is going by the end of the year? Is it going to get worse before it gets better?
I mean, I think things are going to get smaller.
How so?
I think if you're not raising your prices, you're shrinking what you're bringing in.
Oh, the physical size of the product.
So like shrinkflation is a real thing.
So next part of the question is, how does that impact your business decisions on product selection or pricing and things like that? So that's a perfect one.
I think historically we've been linked to very specific impulse price points, $9.99, $19.99, $29.99. It has been from the beginning of time in the as seen on TV business, and I don't think we can really get away from that because, I mean, how much ever we think somebody's going to walk into the store to buy a Snuggie, they're not. They're going to buy it when they're sitting there and they see it, and they're like, I'm bored, I want to buy that thing, right? So they're really impulsive by nature. So I don't think we can get away from those prices unless everybody gets away from those prices. And I've never seen midpoint price points work, like a $11.99 or $10.99 or $12.99 sometimes, but yeah.
So now, have you looked at products recently that you're thinking would have been great 2 years ago, not great now, simply because of the supply chain side of things?
We used to sell 200,000 pillows per month, which we no longer sell.
Really? Because you can't get them?
Because they're $7 a piece to ship.
Yeah. Steve?
We won't look at $19.99 products, impulse items, anything like that.
Really?
So
that's a big shift.
Yeah, so we want higher dollar items, more value oriented. We specialize in a lot of items that are health related, so the value is in what it provides the customer, as opposed to, oh, this is a bottle of tag away, what have you.
Paul?
One thing, as we're talking, it made me think, we don't want to raise our prices to consumers, so what we're basically doing is probably taking less margin, where normally along the way, just like they're raising our rent wherever you live, or your costs go up. What we're trying to do is keep that consistent price for the consumer. So yeah, we take less margin then, essentially. As much as normally in normal times, if everything else was probably better, we probably would inch up on certain products, maybe the price a little bit. But for right now, we don't want to mess with it in a way.
So Steve, go back to $19.99. Do you think $19.99 is gone for a while?
For us it is, but then we were just talking before that those little Ruby sliders, they advertise at 99 cents, but once you call in, you're in a whole nother world, and I bet his average order is $60.
Right.
Possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So is that is this a DRTV problem because of the cost of media that you just can't make that up for $19.99?
It's not a cost of media, it's the logistics
just
of bringing it in, and
there's not enough margin
cost
there.
per order to be able to support those type of low dollar items.
Have you played around with different offers that you wouldn't have tried before? Go back to BOGOs and things like that?
We have buy one, get ones, and we charge shipping and handling.
Mm-hmm. Have
free
you seen
shipping,
an impact?
We don't have any of our offers with free shipping.
Have you seen that impact your campaigns at all?
Excuse me?
Have you seen? No?
Well, it's not an option. So, yeah.
I mean, look, it's challenging. Amazon has set people's expectation for how quickly they want their product and at what price they want to pay to get it, and that's zero and tomorrow. So I think that's a challenge for us. I mean, we don't have an option anymore, so we have to take less margin when it comes to getting product to customers, because ultimately the better we could serve our customer, the bigger our business and our media impact will be. And that's the important thing, because we're a big retail player, right? So that's what matters to us. So.
Okay. If you could go back to let's pick a year, 2020, the end of 2020. When did global supply chain really start to become a daily concern or a weekly concern? March of 2021, right?
Yeah. A little bit before that, if you saw what was going on overseas.
So if you could go back to February 2021 and make one change to how you run your business, what would you do?
Buy and sell Peloton stock. That's exactly what I would do. I have the dates of which I would do them.
Hindsight.
Steve, any changes you would make?
Just think about it. Not really.
Really?
We weren't prepared for how well TV was going to work during the pandemic. Yep. And so, fortunately, Clean Zone was our top product at the time, and we had bought a lot of inventory regardless because of a long lead time to build it, so we were in good shape.
That's great. Paul? Any change you would make going back to March of February 2021.
Well, the packaging, like I said, we sort of got on early, and I think we were, did the right thing there. Ingredients, because we're, U.S. made and we get pretty much everything within the U.S., we didn't foresee some of the ingredient manufacturers having issues as well.
What kind of problems were they having? Was it
Oh,
COVID?
no, same supply chain, same things we've discussed. We just sort of didn't expect it from them because we always were able to, call up and order, today and get stuff in within a couple weeks sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly that changed real quick. I'm like, shoot, we should have stockpiled. Because there's shelf life is fine. I mean, there's not like big issues, but still some of the ingredients we should have just got more of just to have that because we didn't know what was going to, nobody had a crystal ball to understand what was going on and how long it would last.
So you bring up U.S.-based. Has anybody explored U.S.-based manufacturing?
Oh, God, yeah.
Like that? Is that even an option?
That's a yes. So yeah.
Explored, yes.
We've explored and we're working on it.
Okay. So there are viable options out there?
We think so. With some of our cosmetic tag away nor paint away, they were made here in the U.S. to begin with, so that hasn't been an issue.
So you had relationships that
yeah, like
work.
if it was something that's going on the human body, I would not want to be buying it from overseas, and so those things have been manufactured here. But when you deal with pillows and other things, you have to explore your options.
Yeah, right. Does the math, sorry, actually just to expand on that, the math, obviously manufacturing in the United States was more expensive, right? That's why we went overseas. Does the math now kind of equal out? Let's say U.S. was fully capable and they had the ready to take you on your product. Would the math actually equal out now? Is shipping that expensive?
I can jump in with one of the really important parts. So everything, like I said, we make it in the U.S., our company here in the U.S. for packaging, they order the bottles, let's say. So we would get a separate bill for the 25% tariff. So you have the tariff on there, which we didn't bring up earlier, but we have this tariff. We would suddenly say, we're buying these at, I don't know, the bill was $30,000, and then suddenly you have 25% on top of that. It was like a separate line item.
Yeah.
But then also now the cost of the shipping. So yes, if there was a way to shift it, that's a big chunk of money that you might be able to shift. So if you can... But again, not everybody has that kind of specialized manufacturing. Right. We're finding, like on tubes and some other things, we found some manufacturers we can buy. Pricing is reasonable, and we can get it in the U.S. Yeah, of course, we want to try to shift that.
Right.
Definitely, it's a big difference actually now.
Interesting, Steve.
Yeah, I'd rather have it made in the United States.
Really?
Then we wouldn't have that variability of the shipping, and so yeah, it would be much better. And if the economics play out, then definitely we'd be making the things that we would import. Clean zone, we couldn't make in the United States. We were looking to do that domestically even before the pandemic. Just doesn't exist.
Do you think this is going to speed up U.S. capabilities for manufacturing?
I think absolutely.
Think so?
Especially like you can't buy a pillow in the United States right now because every pillow manufacturer is at capacity. I mean, some things are going to be challenging. You can't very well make an air fryer in the United States, but I think simplistic items you can certainly do. And I think there's going to be a big packaging boom in the United States as well, because the challenge is you can't make good packaging effectively priced in the U.S. You have to make it overseas. So the logistical challenges of making products here, having packages made overseas, any packaging changes made require a 90-day, kind of lead time. So I think you're going to see a lot more of that here.
Back in 2019, what percentage of your time personally, right, executive of the company, was spent thinking about supply chain and logistics? Was it just this thing that happened in the background and you understood, hey, yeah, we can't order and get it tomorrow, I get that. Did you have to spend brain cycles on global supply chain 2-3 years ago?
We had other Indians for that, so
I didn't worry about it.
So no, it didn't bubble up to your level, right, Steve?
It wasn't top of mind.
Just didn't need to be, right?
No, I would put projections together, and
Using
it was always a small thing for inbound freight, and I didn't really think about it.
Paul, same?
Same, yeah. I mean, it wasn't a big issue. We always knew, it's 90 days, whatever, 120 days, whatever it is, and then we just built that in. Then suddenly that's when it changed, and...
What about now? Did it...
You know what, it's funny. I was with my packaging company here. They're based up in Deerfield Beach. Went out and played golf with them. I never golf. I really suck too, but luckily they were surprised. Like, you're a natural. But Side hustle here was when we were talking about, I'm like, what is going on with supply chain? Do you feel it's changing? So I actually got a glimmer of hope that, yes, things are actually speeding up on their side. So
really?
That was nice, yeah. If you get your orders in, yeah, you can probably get it quicker. On the production side, not talking about the shipping or the container aspect of it, but from them, at least they were.
At least one link of the chain is starting to
improving. So he's like, yeah, we could probably get something not 9 to 12 months like it was a couple months ago, like 4 to 6. So I saw a shift, potentially. So that's good.
So going back to, start.
First of all,
that's on packaging.
All customers are naturals.
Yeah.
And playing golf.
Well, I'm just a lot stronger than these guys. I was a half a foot taller than them all.
How much of your time is spent on thinking about it now, or things related to it? Right, it's a
math,
shift in.
Right, it's the math that I think becomes the big thing. Like what is this actually going to cost us? What business decisions are going to change because of these new costs? And I think that's where it really comes into play. But a lot of time.
For no longer a line item for you? Is it?
It's definitely something I think about. Like I have my to-do list of things I do, and I have another pad where I have all the containers that are coming in. I never would have had that.
Really?
And so, do you run heavier media? Do you line up? How far are we ahead of the curve? That type of thing. And that wasn't an issue before.
Has this opened up new contacts, new businesses, new things that you wouldn't have known about them or thought about them in the past? So, for example, are there new consulting agencies that figure out things that maybe 2 years ago you never needed? Your stuff and you don't care. Did this open up any of that? I mean, are you dealing directly with logistical companies that you just wouldn't have before, or is it all the same stuff? It's just taking longer and costing more.
I think it's the same stuff.
Is it
same stuff?
One thing that I employ and I maybe used to not do it as much is whatever we're trying to buy or source for the company. It always used to be we'd have one or two. Now I'm like draconian on getting three options. I always say, okay, this price on the box is here, this is here. I need that third option, and then I am able to make decisions. Then it's speed, quality, or price, and then that's how I option. So getting those 3 quotes, and also even if I'm working with a supplier who I've been with for years, I feel like, okay, I'm keeping them honest. And also makes me feel better that, okay, they're competitive. Because I had something come up in the last 2 months where, man, I got a new supplier came in, significantly less expensive than the people I was working with.
Why do you think that was? Why?
I have no idea. I think it was just, either they're hungry for it, they're taking less margin, because the paper prices, this is on secondary packaging, so, and it's quote, US made, but they're ordering, I think, some paper and stuff probably, but it has to be, either they're taking less margin, because I think the input or supplies, the paper and things like that, are probably not that off from either place, unless one has a significant economies of scale, because maybe they're bigger, and that I didn't have a handle on.
So you had mentioned that you saw a time frame loosening up a little bit at the very beginning of the chain. Why is there such a problem? I'm sure nobody knows the answer fully, right? But in your experience of having to deal with this, why is it such a problem today, right? I mean, manufacturing isn't shut down for COVID anymore.
No.
There's not a strike going on. I mean, why is it taking so long to start to normalize, if it even has started to normalize?
I think what's happening in China is being far underreported. Based on what the restrictions in Hong Kong are, and how little they can move back and forth between China, no, there's still problems over there.
Really?
And I think even a place like Hong Kong, where they took pretty draconian measures early, they're just starting to see different variants come in now, which are, they don't have restaurants open, they don't have bars open, you can't travel back and forth between China. You don't do that and disrupt your economy to that degree if there wasn't a problem.
There wasn't still a COVID problem.
So I think there's still an issue.
And you're right, it's not being reported in the news because they're shutting down the news a little bit.
Yeah, what news?
So, yeah.
Steve, anything on that?
No.
Do you think Ukraine war is going to make this worse?
We were just talking about this, actually, but
I don't know how it would affect.
This sounds like a real dystopian capitalist kind of nightmare, but it's actually helping our business because of the eyeballs watching TV.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Which is sick.
Yeah.
But
Well,
here
check
we are.
numbers this morning, and I'll know how we did this weekend. So this is a new thing, so I can't make that determination. Mm-hmm. But obviously, during COVID, it was a major boom.
Is this a China-only problem for global supply chain? Do you get products from anywhere else? Have you explored looking at Thailand? I mean, any other countries, or would you just
China
be trading?
China also did buy every factory in Vietnam.
In Vietnam, yeah.
So whether you want to deal with China or not, you're dealing with China.
Recently?
I think probably around COVID time, they started buying. They were buying things before that too. I mean, they just have, a tremendous amount of resource to be able to do it.
Would that be a reason not to look at Vietnam? I mean, would they be under the same restrictions and quarantine type things that you were just talking about?
I think a lot of people are manufacturing things now in Mexico and Vietnam, and especially when it comes to textiles and soft goods. I think you have a lot more options, but there's some things that you just cannot beat the pricing out of China. But tariffs, again, touching upon tariffs.
So talk through that. I don't know anything about it. So how is that? When I think about global supply chains and the logistics of it, I'm thinking purely of the moving pieces, not the legalities, the legal stuff.
Tariffs happened first.
So what?
The tariffs happened
25% on the cost of goods. So yeah.
When did that start?
I think it was 2018. It was
during the previous administration.
Yeah.
Okay. They put the 25% on.
Yeah. It was a major deal for Clean Zone. Yeah, it was subjected. It still is 25% tariff, but fortunately, it's a $100 item, and so we didn't change the price of the item. We just absorbed it in our costs.
And there's any political talk of adjusting that, or what was the goal of the tariff?
I don't know, but I can tell you one anecdotal story that Keith from TriStar, I think he's done okay this year, but so I wouldn't cry for him just yet. But he had and I want to say it was like $10 million worth of air fryers, on the water the day they made the tariff changes, and he had to pay the tariff difference while the goods were on the water.
Really?
So talk about an economic change immediately.
25%.
25% on a $60 cost of good product. So,
but that's something that happened in 2018, right? 2018, 2019. Lifting that would help. Right, but I have to imagine you accommodated for that before the supply chain itself.
I don't know why nobody has been talking about this, because that is a release valve that you could absolutely exercise, and nobody's doing it.
Would that make anything worse? Financially, great. Would people suddenly start trying to order more, and we're getting back into
probably the only thing it would make worse is our deficit.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Yeah, there's been articles about them rescinding it. But then we also have international issues related to China, and if you would take away the tariffs, what are we going to get in return?
Exactly.
And that's the reason probably why they haven't in the current administration.
You brought up tariffs a couple times.
It's geopolitical,
but it would help for inflation. That's for sure.
Definitely.
For cost inflation.
Yep. Actually, it's going to be the next question.
That would definitely help, having that taken away, and it's a big. To me, it's one of our biggest costs within the cost of goods of the unique product, actually. And it's tough because you set your pricing in 2018-19, and then, 2018, something like that, and we sort of, look at the white space and where we fit. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to raise the product price, 20-30% to somewhat offset it. And when you look at your, luckily if you have a good average order value, okay, we can absorb this. I mean, but if things stay the way they are and this isn't going anywhere and inflation keeps going up, eventually we're going to have to pass along and say, okay, we got to raise that $5-10, at retail.
Have any of you substantially, is the word, increased prices on anything? Tested it out, see if people are willing to absorb it?
No.
We did.
Did you?
I've done a few products.
Did it work?
No. Horrifying. The results have been disastrous.
And also
they're okay.
Also realize on their side, you guys don't do free shipping. In our industry, free shipping is like you said, you have to. If you charge for shipping, it's like you're a pariah now. In beauty.
Do you do anything different? So there's a lot of chatter about returns, right? So e-commerce, there are a lot of returns just historically. Does the fact that you have less supply change anything about returns? Do you want those returns now and trying to repackage them? Does it change anything business-wise?
I mean, again, for a guy like Keith who's making air fryers, absolutely. You know, for making Ruby sliders, we don't really care. We calculate it all into the actual cost of how we do business.
Returns are really small on our products, fortunately. So it hasn't been a major issue at all, actually.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, we can't, when we get returns, you know, we eat it because we can't. Even if somebody says it's not open, you don't know. It's a personal product.
Makeup, yeah.
Yes, we can't touch it. But we're pretty, knock on wood, fortunate. We have an addictive product, I guess you'd call it. Mm-hmm. So people like the product. We have about a 70-80% repurchase rate, which is hugely high for our industry. But the bottom line, you make good products, people want to buy it again. That's a big difference with what we do. We're making a consumable that people sort of get hooked on.
Yeah,
if the product works and it makes my lines and wrinkles go away or my age spot, and we have the clinical data, people are pretty confident with it. So it helps.
Which leads to a question we had earlier. I almost want to ask it again. Does this change for the product guys? Does this change the types of products that you would want to look for? Did this expose a chink in the armor of the types of products that we're offering in a typical DRTV? Would you think of more continuity and subscription, more maybe video on demand, and add things to it that are less physical goods?
I mean, I think for us, you know, traditionally we worked on a specific margin structure, you know, like a cost basis versus a retail price. And I think that multiple is significantly changing. It was changing already when our business went from a direct-to-consumer on television to a direct-to-consumer on the web. Mm-hmm. I think you just look for different multiples there because your customer acquisition costs are so different. But I think this just kind of furthers that along. But everybody that I've been talking to is looking for higher margin products.
Higher margin.
Different.
For us, it's so much higher margin, but you need the margins, but higher dollars so that you'll have an average order that's higher, that gives you a higher allowable on television, and to make everything work, especially when you're getting into social media, you need a higher order value to make that work.
So have you played around more with post-transaction upsells, downsells? I mean, it doesn't have to be the product itself, right? It's obviously the average order. So if you add more units, friends and family, do you want, rush processing, all the traditional DRTV type things, does it put more of a reliance on that type of stuff just to get the average order up?
It was always important.
It was always important. But I feel like now with the education and how much light is actually on it, is that trick going to continue to work? And is that a trick? Is our trick of you getting in at $9.99 and then looking at your credit card and seeing a $70 bill, is that a trick? And is that something that in the internet age is going to continue on? I wouldn't be so happy about it, personally, even though we do it. I just don't see it happening forever.
Got it. So we're actually pretty close to out of time. So I got one last question. What's the biggest mistake that a entrepreneur, an inventor, a smaller business that hasn't been doing this for as long as you guys, biggest mistake they could make not realizing that things have changed in terms of supply chain and should they get professionals? I mean, is this the kind of thing that maybe you could have figured it out a few years ago and it's just not the case? Is it a world where the big guys, you included, have the attention of the shippers and the manufacturers, and the small guys they're not going to be able to get in? What's changed for them? What's a big mistake they could make or something like that? We'll end it on that one.
Well, I think we were going to a trend of the everyday entrepreneur where the guy was just sitting at home. Mm-hmm. Yep. He was sourcing a product on AliExpress. He was selling it on Shopify. He was sitting in his mom's basement, maybe. Mm-hmm. And they were making money, right? So instead of having these really big companies, you had a bunch of really small, $5 million companies, and they were doing great. But now the ball field has changed. You can't source those same products on AliExpress. The shipping is more expensive. The iOS change with Apple is making the customer acquisition cost significantly different. So I think having the structure and the scale of a large company will help to get some of those products off where people were doing it in a different way just 3 years ago. So
a major issue is the major retailers, would be Walmart, Wahlgren, they aren't open to single product vendors, and they haven't been for quite a while.
Yeah. So, but this would have doubled down on that.
If a young entrepreneur once I have this product, I have visions of being at Walmart and all that, that is really pretty much closed because they want, especially nowadays, they want a vendor who is going to deliver the product if they have a space on the shelf that it will be there for them.
False.
They're also looking for new technologies, so having IP, having patents, having a unique proposition, and having a product that works. Consumers can see through bullshit. They want a product that works and performs for them. So I think having that is important.
Do you think, so you talked about IP, does this, do you think this opens up the door for more licensing deals? You know, people who have the idea, they have the product, but I mean, it turns into, you could in the past, you could go get it sourced, right? It's the internet. You can go find somebody and get that over. Today, that's just not going to happen. Would that open up licensing opportunities, or has that already, or not reality?
I think we've always had somewhat of a competitive advantage because you do own a lot of retail space. So, whenever somebody covets that space, they're going to come to you if they can't get it in themselves. So I think that space has always been open. I don't know if it's going to happen more or less now, but I think the idea generation of making these concepts work and just scaling them on your own on the internet, I think that's going to it's going to be hurt a little bit, so maybe less flow of product.
Yeah.
And I lied, that's not the last question. So historically, bad times, so you mentioned this with the war in Ukraine, don't necessarily mean a bad time for DRTV. Right? So COVID, it was the perfect storm for COVID, for DRTV. You were quarantined, sitting at home watching TV. You could not shop retail. You could not go to the gym. You could not go to restaurants. Happen to be the biggest categories in this industry, and e-commerce exploded. Right. So and then media rates. Right. People pulled out of media rates. So it was a perfect storm. It actually helped DRTV. Is there a silver lining on this? Are we becoming better companies and better run organizations and making better decisions having gone through this and then surviving it? If a recession comes up, are we actually in better shape to benefit from that?
I think direct response is recession-proof. In 2008, during the last Great Recession,
it was huge.
Our category did incredibly well. I think in bad times, people are more reluctant to make capital purchases, but they're really willing to make comfort and $20 and $30 and $50, and they want to look better, they want to sleep better, they want to slide around in their chairs. I don't know what we make, but like they're willing to make those purchases to make themselves feel better, whatever it takes.
Steve?
If the product's cool and solves a problem for them, I think we'll always have an industry. It's just if without, innovation and that type of thing, then the industry dies. And that's why we always have to be testing new things and figuring out new ways of doing things and be open to, like our company, we're selling pillows. Who would ever thought we'd be selling CPAP cleaners? Clean Zone or whatever. And then on the other hand, we're selling Mighty Thirsty mops. So we went back to old school. Yeah. So we're open to pretty much everything.
Phil's getting older. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect. Actually, we have Tom. I think we're good. Right on time.
Any questions from the audience? Oh, Brett. We are recording this, so even though you're sitting right here, I'm going to give you the mic.
So obviously the cost, we talked about, you talked about, is the 1995 offer still valid? And so in order to reduce costs because of the cost of goods that comes in, and you mentioned it earlier that you get them in at $9.95 and then their bill is $70. So, for example, with Bubblehead...
But that's not us.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
I would never do that.
But with Bubblehead, for example, in addition to getting in there, you become a member of the Bubblehead Club, and so you're given offers on other products. So you're kind of belong to a club. Is that something that each of the panelists is looking at in trying to recover? That kind of that initial order.
So is the idea that instead of $19.95, it would be $29.95, but it includes a membership? Is that what
something like that?
Something like that. Okay.
Trying to
ever explored?
Get it into the door, but then continually.
For us, we've always just tried, like, the whole business, this is all a traffic game, whether it's traffic at Walmart or traffic on a website, or you want to be able to monetize your traffic, right? So if you're getting traffic from a direct response spot that you have, you want to, you want to disrupt that traffic with as many products as you can to get your average order value up. So however we can do that, we've explored every method to be able to do that, exhaustingly explored every method, so.
Yeah, our company's never done a continuity. We've attempted it, but that's not our business. So, and then plus, when you're upselling, you want very related products so that when they get it, they're going to be happy with it. And I don't want to overload them because then they'll go, wow, I have $70 worth of these things. I was only spending 20. Yeah, I don't want it back either. And so there's limits to what you want to do. But yeah, after the first upsell, it's a diminishing returns at that point. So we'd rather have the first upsell be very strong and very related, and then the rest of it is small.
I think for us, just to add in what was interesting, we've only been on the market technically with our products 2.5 years. So in the beginning, it was all about get product in people's hands. So we did a lot of sampling stuff with like Ipsy, Glossy Box, the box, subscription boxes, and also with like Allure and some of the magazines. And that was important for us, though you don't make any money on that.
Yeah.
We like break even because usually you're selling to them about your COGS, let's say. But the nice thing is 10 or 20% of the people come back and become a repeat customer and then a repeat purchase. So what I saw is the evolution of discounting a little heavier in the beginning, doing subscription stuff. Now we're reaping the benefits because now we have a bustling and growing subscription business.
Yeah.
Because people found out the product like, wow, this is good. Oh, I can subscribe and save? Great. So we do subscribe and save on Amazon, subscribe and save on us. And we're slowly building that. Did we start with it? No, because why would you start with a subscription if you haven't tried it yet? It makes no sense.
If you had an inventory problem next month, do the subscribers get it first? Whatever you have?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And also the other thing I think we shifted towards, I saw is, we didn't have as many products 2.5 years ago. So now we have a little wider line, but bundling. Suddenly we're selling bundles. That drives up our AOV. So and the related products, because touching on that, the serum with the moisturizer, then now with the cleanser, working on, other products like an SPF. Then suddenly they can either plug in that one into the regime or buy it as a little set. So we're experimenting with different offers, and that is helping too, I think, now. Yep. So it's an evolution essentially for us.
Right. Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
Oh, one more.
Good morning.
Morning.
So I'm curious, mainly from the health and beauty products. So maybe it's Steve and Paul. In terms of made in the USA, I'm just curious from a marketing shift if you have seen and the importance that you feel the consumer is placing on particularly skincare, things they're putting in their body, how important made in the USA is in your marketing positioning as it relates to things that you actually are looking to make in the USA.
For me, very important. It's funny when I do like the trainings with Ulta and Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus. It's like one of the first things, cosmetic chemist, company, developed in the U.S., made in the U.S. It's one of the points we stress because, especially it's funny on Amazon, every once in a while we'll have a weird takedown, and I feel like out of the blue they take down a product, and then we have all the backup. And I almost feel like they're looking at us like we're a made in China product. Like, we want mercury tests and all this stuff. I'm like, mercury tests? Like, who works with mercury? And they said, no, they get a lot of Chinese made products. So made in the US to me is a huge advantage. And now we're growing into Europe. I've launched in the UK. I'm in Germany. I'm working on the Middle East and Australia. And yes, being made in the US is a huge advantage, and having all the, again, we're a, quote, cosmetic, so we're not like an OTC product where you have to go through FDA approval. Except for SPF, you do have to go through FDA. So I think made in the U.S. and having all the clinical tests in the backup, it's making our life so much easier on compliance, because there's compliance things that you have to go through. So yes, I agree, made in the U.S. is helpful. I think it reassures consumers, and also it reassures sometimes international buyers. They sort of trust products made here. So.
I think it makes a difference, and if it is made in the USA, we'll put it on the website, and if we have time, put it in the commercial. If you're running on Fox News, it's a major thing.
Yep.
And I got some hate mail last week, actually, from somebody who wanted to buy a mop, and so is it made in China or whatever? And I go, yeah, and because if it's made in China, I don't want it. So it's an issue. But during COVID, the whole idea of Made in USA had another twist to it, that you were in stock, Made in USA, inventory in USA, we used to put on the website and still do. So it, not only of, nationalism, but also from a product standpoint.
Do you put that on products now, or on campaigns that it's in stock, ready to ship? Is that tested
on the website,
that? You do. So
sure.
if you have it, it's something people are looking for.
Yeah, in stock, ready to ship.
Yeah.
Mostly our retailers.
Yeah.
But yeah. We don't make anything in the USA, so it's completely not relevant to me. Yeah. I'm like, I'm sure it's great. It sounds lovely.
Yeah. You look at Amazon. When you're on your Amazon page, it always shows, below the buy box, ships in and shows you the time frame, which is always helpful, I think, for consumers.
Agreed. Anybody else?
10:02.
10:02.
There you go.
One more. This will be the closer.
So I know, like you mentioned, regarding the Ukraine war, which is very unfortunate, it's fairly recent, but I'm just wondering if you're spending on DRTV media, what kind of results are you seeing? Because at the end of the day, you're running TV media, there is a negative connotation to that. Is that negatively affecting your brand in any way, or the results have been consistent?
I mean, for us, it's just, like we're seeing increased traffic, and with increased traffic, you're just getting an increased response. So, I don't know if, in terms of us putting the product in generally poor taste, I don't think the direct response category has ever really
subscribed to that theory.
Yeah. Taste it's a matter of taste. But yeah, I don't think it, again, with more eyeballs, we're just getting a better response.
So your takeaway is don't pull media.
Yeah, my takeaway is while there's people watching television, it's still the best way to communicate a message, still the best way to derive a response from people, whether at retail or in any other platform you're selling. While it's still there, I highly recommend you use it.
Steve?
I think the biggest threat to the industry is that younger people don't watch TV, they watch it on demand, they're watching movies and what have you. So we may have just one more generation in, and then we're going to have some real problems. Yeah. But although, say you're buying CNN or Fox News or what have you, you might be preempted because of the war. Your spots may be preempted.
Oh, that's interesting. Yep. So
but
your
but when they
won't
clear, they're doing well. So.
Well, thank you, Greg, for putting this group together.
Thank you.
Paul, Steve, Amit, have about a round of applause for our group here.
Thanks, guys.
Please join us at 10:30. We're going to be talking about the Hispanic market and the challenges of attribution.